Let's talk about Sable here. She's been one of the hottest merch movers for a couple of years. She's getting huge pops. She is a huge star. I mean, she's been on the cover of Playboy. She's been on TV Guide. I mean, she is a really, really big star. But we're turning her heel. Talk to me about the Sable heel turn. Were you in favor of that? Did that make sense? Or
I think it was a heel turn, Conrad. Excuse me, for the sake of a change.
okay.
I didn't think it was well thought out. There's no reason to turn her heel. It's just somebody's impatience, maybe Vince or somebody else in the creative. She didn't need to have her TV persona altered. She's over. She was selling merchandise. Why would you even take a chance to allow that to happen? Uh, so I didn't agree with that one. But you're right about several of those points you made. She was a huge star. She
Yeah.
evolved into becoming a major star. And if philosophically, how do you determine that, Jr.? Well, I saw the merchandise numbers daily. I know how much she was going to earn on her royalty checks that came out every quarter. So she was she didn't need tweaking at that point in time, in my view. I thought it was very premature.
Let's talk about Scorpio. We knew him here as Flash Funk, but once upon a time you worked with him in WCW as Too Cold Scorpio, and of course that's what he was known in ECW. But he's going to get released here, and Meltzer would say he's been in and out of hot water since he started with the company. At the '97 WrestleMania, he had a domestic dispute at the hotel, which resulted in the police being called, and it was something of a black eye for the company since everyone in their families comes to WrestleMania.
Yep.
He was a major letdown, and when he missed the show with no valid reason in Colorado Springs a few weeks back, it was no surprise he was let go. I know that you've always sort of championed how important reliability was
Yeah.
in the company. Was that really the issue? And do you remember this conversation and circumstance?
Well, Vince just lost confidence in him. Some of the behavior, it wasn't that Charles, aka Tuco Scorpio, was a bad guy or a wife beater, but he had enough issues to put on his report card that it made him very vulnerable. I felt badly about that because I didn't think that Scorpio was going to be a close the show main event guy, uh, but you know, and I could have been wrong on that, but I liked the guy. He was unique. He was different. He always kept changing his game. He was doing things that are now normal. He was doing things then that were abnormal, and that only he could execute with the level of skill that he was doing. So it was unfortunate. I still like Charles. I think he's a good guy and hell of an athlete. So it's just one of those things, man. One or two little mistakes that fall in front of the eyes of the chairman uh, doesn't do you any favors.
Let's talk a little bit about where you are in the Monday Night Wars. On February 15th, Raw sets an all time viewership record at that point 6,492,000 viewers. Meanwhile, Nitro only draws 3,851,000 viewers. So 6.4 to 3.8, nearly double. I mean, it's crazy. You guys have just dominated. Meltzer would call it the biggest whitewash in the history of the Monday Night Wars. And maybe in retaliation to that, a few days later, in response to these low ratings, Goldberg's on the Tonight Show with Jay Leno,
Yeah.
and he issues a challenge to Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's not something we saw very often in this era. Were you surprised to see Goldberg call out Austin on the Tonight Show?
Yeah, a little bit. I thought it was one of those, you know, please notice me. We're trying to create some interest here, et cetera, et cetera. Uh, but yeah, I was a little surprised. It seemed desperate. It didn't seem natural. And I know that Bill and Steve were friends, so there wasn't any personal heat there. It was a matter, I'm sure, that Bill got instructed. Here's what I want you to do, and Eric could answer that better than me, obviously. But there was no heat between the two guys on a personal level. But if hey, obviously, if that match could have happened somewhere down the road, it would be a moneymaker. But that was never to be. As long as the day that Goldberg signed with us is when we can start keeping score. Now the challenges mean something. Heretofore, they meant nothing. Just a publicity stunt.
Well, the WWF, of course, is not going to respond to this. And the only time we get any response at all is when Stone Cold goes on Howard Stern's radio show. Howard brings it up, and Austin says something like, Goldberg was wrestling in the minor leagues. Obviously, that would have been gigantic had they hooked up in, we'll say, the summer of 98. But by 99, boy, Goldberg and WCW were sucking hind teat, as they say in the South.
Yes, sir.
Terry Taylor is a guy we haven't talked about a lot here on the show, but man, he was back and forth between the WWF and WCW here. He's going to come back to the WWF in this era. He's even going to be working as an announcer on Sunday Night Heat. What can you tell us about Terry Taylor's on again, off again stints with the company?
Well, he's a smart guy, talented guy. No doubt about that. He's a veteran, student of the game. So he was just trying to make a living. Him announcing and replacing JR or whatever, he just one of many that came through that with that same goal in mind, as he was instructed to do by his owner, and that's was to, I want you to be a star in JR's old role. So it just didn't quite work out for Terry. Terry's his skill set is more akin to putting matches together, coaching, mentoring, and I think that's been proven out by his long stay at NXT. So that's kind of where I see that deal. He was just miscast.
Yes,
and you see that a lot in wrestling. This guy's the heel. No, he really should be a baby face. Whatever. There's a million ways. He's in a tag. We won't even get him out of the tag. But if the tags are working, and you just want to make a change for change's sake, you might be traveling the wrong road. And I think that we traveled the wrong road with Terry. Terry added a lot to the shows, and he still adds a lot to the product that they have. But he was that was not what he was prepared to do. All the years in wrestling did not prepare him to be an announcer.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson here to tell you a little more about what adfreeshows.com is all about. Get early, ad-free access to more than a dozen of your favorite wrestling podcasts every single week, starting at just $9. That's less than 20 cents an episode each month. And yes, you can listen to them all directly through Apple Podcasts or your regular podcast apps. How easy is that? Ad-free shows also has thousands of hours worth of bonus content and docuseries like Title Chase, Eric Fires Back, Conversations with Conrad, and The Insiders. Plus new series like The Book with David Crockett, Monday Mailbags with Mike Chioda and Nick Patrick, and a whole lot more. And you want to talk about early? You can't get any earlier than listening to the shows live. You can be a part of the live studio audience as we record the podcast. Plus, ride shotgun alongside your favorite childhood heroes for live watch-alongs, Q&As, and other interactive experiences every single month. Come on now, see for yourself what thousands of other wrestling fans from around the world have discovered, that adfreeshows.com is the best value in wrestling. Check it out today, and hey, when you do, the first week is completely free. adfreeshows.com.